Hi, I'm Ken Jacobson, and welcome to Top Docs. Today we're talking to executive producer Joe Lewis about the doc series 100 Foot Wave Season 3. The series is available now for streaming on HBO Max. 100 Foot Wave Season 3 is nominated for 4 Emmys: Outstanding Documentary or Nonfiction Series, as well as Outstanding Cinematography, Sound Editing, and Sound Mixing. Joe Lewis is an Emmy, Tony, Peabody, Golden Globe winning producer and the CEO of Amplify Pictures. Joe also produced the acclaimed series Fleabag, Transparent, and Too Old to Die Young. Prior to Amplify, Joe was the co-founder of Amazon Studios. He's also a veteran of Top Docs. Joe Lewis, welcome back to Top Docs.
Hey Ken, thanks for having me back. Love the show. Really appreciate you guys talking about season two, talking about season three, and watching it all.
Absolutely. Huge fan of the series. Now, all 3 seasons. The opening episode, the opening chapter, chapter 1, is, I think, interesting because it's not so much about big waves in the beginning as it is about a neurologist's office.
Just to interject real quickly, we being, me and Chris Smith, the director, I'll speak for him here and HBO too, none of us set out to make a surf show or see it as a surf show. I think it's a lot of things and it's in the world of surfing, but I think, that's the reason the show, among many reasons the show starts the way it does. And yeah, I'm glad that you felt like that watching it.
Yeah, no, I think chapter 1 is called Risk. And really, that point is brought home right away where the main character of 100 Foot Wave, Garrett McNamara, the big wave surfer, he's going to see a neurologist to have his brain tested. By his own estimation, he's had around 100 concussions from surfing. It strikes me that every portrait of every big wave surfer who's competed as long as Garrett would probably inevitably end up in a neurologist's office at some point because it's a violent sport. I mean, these waves don't play around. But talk a bit more about why you wanted to put the viewer there in that office with Garrett early on in season 3.
So much of the show, I think, has been about just us getting in position to shoot the show, literally, and, moving with the characters as stuff happens to them. I think we got lucky. None of it was planned to happen that way. Like I said, we don't look at this as a surf show. It's about humans trying to do something extraordinary. It's about an extraordinary place. It's about the combination of those things, and it can be other things too. But, I just think somehow magically, God, it's so hard. It sounds, I always feel like there's too many surfing metaphors, when I talk about the show. So much of the show is about, us just getting in position. We just shoot, honestly, for 6 months out of the year, 7 days a week, not necessarily 24 hours a day, but if there's something happening, we're there shooting it. And we just end up with a massive amount of footage. Nothing's ever set up, nothing's ever talked about before. And we've gotten really lucky so far that each season is, sort of taken its own shape naturally. In season 3, it was a slow season wave-wise in Nazare. So the surfers really went out to a lot of new directions, and we're just following the life of Garrett and Nicole McNamara and their family. And Garrett is dealing with safety and surfing and safety in his life and family. And, we're just there shooting when that stuff happens. And, it happens along the timeline of the season, as you see. Especially now 17 hours into a story, it's just amazing the sort of depth of character of the moments that you can take time to find without it feeling leading or heavy-handed and just feeling natural. So it's a long way of saying that Chris and the editors did an amazing job starting the season there, but it also is just what happens naturally, same with everything that followed. Every episode, there's a lot of amazing highs and there's some real lows, personally for the characters this season. Just happened organically as we show it. And just, 6 years into making the show, it's always been amazing that everything seems to happen, if you just get in place and wait.
I think that the stakes do feel greater in season 3. One of the things that I think is consistent over the 3 seasons, but maybe even more so in season 3, is that there's a lot of attention paid to partnerships, whether these are life partnerships, romantic partnerships, or partnerships. The key partnership for big wave surfing between the jet ski drivers who get the surfers onto the big waves and the big wave surfers. In the course of focusing on these partnerships, we do see a lot of friction emerge between partners in season three. You know, there's Justine Dupont, who's an amazing big wave surfer, and Tony Loriano, who's also a great big wave surfer. They're partnered with Tony driving her a lot in the early stages of season three, and that leads to, you know, some friction. We also see some tension, probably more than we've ever seen before, between the two great friends, Garrett and Cotty, Andrew Cotton, who's the big wave surfer, and between, you know, Garrett and his wife, Nicole. And I would say between Garrett and everybody. But the other thing we see, though, is that friction is confronted and dealt with. It's not left hanging there. And it got me thinking, as you were saying, this isn't about a series really about surfing so much, that for me, to some extent, those in the big wave surfing community have experienced partnerships maybe on a deeper level or in a more intense way than maybe those of us who mere mortals who spend our time on land. And therefore, they kind of show us the way in some ways about how to navigate through difficult times with these
Yeah, I mean,
partnerships.
just the pressure of being out there. I have to imagine, the trust that you have to have in your partner, and the you have to have the ability to confront whether it's like red flags in that trust, or just, if it's the right for relationship. I think the big wave surfers are very calm, generally, which is why they're great at what they do, but they're also very aware of the conditions around them, and that can mean something weather related, but they're also like, who's towing them in. I mean, it's a true team sport. There's no way to surf waves over 50 feet by yourself. And it's a small fishing village, it's in Portugal. There are not a lot of places to escape. When I got to the world, I was like, wow, it's amazing. Everyone knows each other. And now I see they know each other because although they're flying across a big world, out of all, if you combine all the, big wave areas where they're spending their time, it's very small community. I mean, your safety out there isn't even just affected by your partner, it's everyone else in the water. I mean, it has to be harmonious. Not everyone can two people can't get on the same wave in the same spot, let alone, when there's 10, 20, 30 jet skis out in Nazare. So anyway, it's just a sport that people who take their safety seriously are the ones who participate in it, or at least who achieve this level of success. And, they're very aware of that safety. And I think it probably puts the same pressure on romantic relationships. And yeah, again, it's just also just the fact of spending 17 hours now in this world, even stuff you can't see, just subjects get more used to cameras over time. And as you shoot, into the thousands of hours with them.
A lot of season three, and it's set up at the beginning, is how are Garrett and Nicole going to navigate the partnership that is their marriage? And they have kids together, and how are they going to balance Garrett's big wave surfing with the needs of the family?
I mean, I find them to be extraordinary. I find Nicole to be just beyond extraordinary, same as Garrett. And they've been so great about just, I mean, since the beginning, they just said, if we're going to do the show, we're just going to let you see everything. And they have stuck with that 1,000%. And Nicole gave birth to Faye, their third child in season two. And now Faye's a little bit older, and you can just, you just see them as a family, sort of as they are. And they've been open about their disagreements, which I don't think anything too crazy. And every marriage is its own story too, and they've just been, I don't know, I just find them to be such an amazing couple, and they have a beautiful life because of it. And I just find them inspiring to be around in person, and I hope that comes across on the show. Like Garrett might lose it on Cody, but I've never ever seen Garrett lose it and then not take stock of that after, learn from it himself, apologize if he needs to. He's not losing it, to some crazy extent given the circumstances. And it's something, I take away from being around them personally, and, I hope from watching the show too.
Chapter two, Undertow, begins in black and white with an older Portuguese woman who says the sea takes away a lot of important things. When a man died at sea, his wife spent her whole life in mourning, which kind of conjures up the possibility for Nicole or anyone else who's married to a big wave surfer. And when it takes away forever. So here, we talked about stakes, and the stakes are raised above risk to death and mortality. And these are prominent themes in season three. You could have treated those, in multiple ways. And you mentioned that you don't necessarily talk about things in advance that much, but what did you all discuss about these themes, these darker, heavier themes, as you were considering the arc for season three and figuring out how you wanted to balance those with some of the lighter moments?
I think what you're getting at, not to spoil it, but the show's been out for a little bit, in the second episode of the show, a Brazilian big wave legend named Marcio Freire passes away on the waves. He wipes out on, what's not the biggest wave out there, but unfortunately didn't make it. It's the first death in Nazare. I've heard when people watch the show, generally, they feel tension, they feel that thing in their stomach. And I'll say, after just, again, working on this 6 years, seeing hundreds of hours of waves. I don't feel that as much anymore. It's gone away. And when you're out there, a lot of times I half joke about how like you're in Nazare, you're with these surfers, you start to feel like maybe I should just go try to get a 20-foot wave. It just starts to feel more every day there. Conversely, when you're in Nazare, there's a traditional Nazare outfit that a lot of the older women wear, these seven skirts, and for different reasons for it. One is to count the waves in a set, but one is that it's to count the days till their partners came back from fishing. And, when they're wearing all black, it means that they've lost someone in the ocean. And even in Nazare today, you can't walk around there and, you see people who have lived there for a long time. And, the idea of dying out there doesn't seem crazy. It's ever present. That episode brought it home. I'm really proud of the episode, and that I think we were able to show off what made Marcio so special to the Brazilian surf community and to his family. And we've gotten just such positive feedback from his family that, feels as good as anything anyone's ever said about the show or could say. The hard part is, we were out there shooting. It was a normal day of shooting for us. We have a lot of camera operators and incredible cinematography team, many of whom that knew Marcio and were out there and shooting. And it's just super tragic. I'm super happy about how it's handled in the show, and I hope everyone feels that way when they watch it. But it's a real loss to the big wave community, and probably, and I don't know if it was inevitable in Nazare. Everyone says that, how the like light spirit that Marcio brought to everything, he just seemed like the best person to be around. So when I watch that episode, I leave feeling good about that. I hope people can still take that away from it.
Yeah, and that's just one of the deep ironies that it happened to him, because this is a guy with clearly a big heart and a huge smile and brought a lot of joy and experienced joy within
And
the
someone who
surfing
was
community.
such a legend to a lot of the people who are regular subjects of the show, and who knows without him if all of their careers would have been the same. So, it
Yeah.
ties into the long running story we've been telling.
We do see how his death plays out through the community and with the people who knew him, and they take it hard, understandably. Eventually, they figure out how to honor him and how to move on. You guys were there shooting. That's something we don't see, is how this affected you and the crew, and how Marcio's death may have changed the trajectory of the series, if it did at all.
I don't want to speak for our crew there. We have an
Yeah.
amazing crew who are integrated into the big wave community. I think it was a really tough thing for all of them. Almost all of them have been involved with big wave surfing as a, world for a while. So I'm guessing it's something people have contemplated at some point, but you never expect it. And, just a real tragedy. There's no other way of putting it. And yeah, it affected the season. Lucas Chianca, goes by Chumbo, ridiculously talented Brazilian surfer, one of the best in the world. He, along with Ian Cosenza and some other surfers were out there, trying to save Marcio, and were there when he passed away. And the third episode of the season is called Cortes Bank, and we can talk about that. But, essentially it's a wave that never goes off on the other side of the world. It's 100 miles off the US, and it ended up going off, or having the potential to go off, sort of right after Marcio had passed away. And the takeaways from that for Chumbo are in the show, and, sort of beautiful. And you see him going from one of the lowest points to, not just with Marcio, but, on a personal level, he's in Nazare with his family, and, his job is the big wave surfing, and he has this traumatic event, but he has to keep working, which is big wave surfing. But then this swell comes up across the world. I can't help but get choked up thinking about it, that like you see the power of these waves to like bring bring him back to life and bring all the other surfers who are all affected by it. And I just like to think that like if, that Marcio would have, been so happy if that was, if this swell happened and his friends were a part of it after they did their best with him. Just really moving to watching the show. And Chumbo is just such a good person and such a good subject and such a, ridiculously good surfer. And he and everyone else scores out in Cortes. And yeah, really, Cortes Bank might be my favorite episode of the entire series for both those emotional reasons and the surf reasons and just how crazy the actual mission was to pull off.
I definitely want to get into that one in just a second, but related to Chumbo, I mean, for me at least, he was kind of the star of season three. I mean, just such, as you say, an incredible surfer, but he also just has this, he's very charismatic. He has a magnetic personality, and, the season just kind of bends toward Chumbo in some ways.
Yeah.
Did you, but he's in the previous season too. Did you kind of guys have a sense that maybe things were going to bend a bit toward him in season three, even before this tragedy?
Yeah, I mean, we've shot with him a bunch the past few years, and yeah,
Yeah.
he's charismatic in real life and funny, and he's such a good surfer that I don't think there was a way to make the show without featuring him in it. We didn't go in saying, we want more of him, but we shot, I don't know, about 3,000 hours, and that gets cut down to per season, that gets cut down to 5 hours. So much great stuff goes, so many great people, characters, situations. You just can't do everything. When we could have more Chumbo in the show. We always liked it, and because of the circumstances, I won't say it's lucky, but I just think it was inevitable that someone like him would get more time, get to shine, and yeah, it's just amazing to watch him in Cortez.
Let's talk about Cortes Bank, which is chapter three, so right at the midpoint of season three. For the most part, it is kind of a standalone story. I think it takes place all on one day, doesn't it? Pretty much.
It's placed over, the boat
Oh,
went over
it takes a
time,
while. I
but yeah,
guess,
okay, it
yeah.
takes place over 2 days.
Th-
There was some packing too, but
that's right. Yeah, it took them quite a while to get there, which we do see, which is
I
its
was
own
on that boat
craziness.
with them. I was sleeping out there. It was like a 9 hour boat ride. And the whole time, you don't know if you're actually, now it's a great story because it worked out, but you don't know if if it's gonna happen. And by the way, it's a 9 hour boat ride. This is one of those things I don't even think we got on the show, or maybe it did, that Chumbo and Justine and Fred. I mean, everyone is just like, there wasn't a lot of space on the boat. We're just sleeping out on the front of that boat under the stars. And, really just like a magical experience, but still tense going out there because of what's about to happen. The best version is something, intense will happen. And the worst version is still intense because it would be a ton of time and effort and nothing, it's also possible nothing could have happened out there. But we got lucky and a lot happened.
You did, and it is a unique surfing spot in the world, and it's also a place that Garrett is returning to because he's been there
That blew
before.
my mind. I mean, I knew that he had surfed out there. The part that blew my mind, again, I worked on the show for over half a decade, and something happens at Cortez. Garrett was in an accident, over a decade ago at Cortez, which ties in a really important way into him going to Nazare back in 2010 and 11. And, really everything, the whole show is about, and I didn't know this till we got out there and started shooting and starting talking about it, but really came out of, in a way, this incident that happened in Cortez a long time ago that put Garrett on this trajectory to go find somewhere new to surf. Everyone outside of Garrett on the show, these are people that live in Nazaré now, which they would not have done if Garrett hadn't gone, which he would not have done if he hadn't had this accident happen at Cortez. It's one of those things, it could have been, in the first episode of the show and it would have been fine and worked well, but to have it come up that far in, it just opened up the whole show. Just the same way parts of life you can't control play this role that you can't see in your own life.
And as is often the case, Nicole provides the backstory and the deeper explanation. So
Yeah.
she tells how the previous time when Garrett was out there when the accident occurred, he's kind of this big kid who's just like super excited and over the top and amidst all these other surfers on the boat who are quiet, because they really realize the magnitude of this moment and how scary it is. But then after all that Garrett has been through since then, she says how much he's changed, Garrett, and that now he's a lot more contemplative. He's like those other surfers were on that previous trip. And so it's all kind of about getting older, aging, evolving as a human being. It all really kind of comes together there.
Yeah, and once again, Nicole just says it in the shortest, funniest, smartest, most, meaningful way. Again, I get moved when I see that, and Garrett's life has been so well covered with cameras. You see him on that trip out there, and you see him just waiting to jump in the water, no fear at all, and no fear at all in a way that's maybe not good. And then you see him still doing it at an incredible age. It's always meaningful. I think meaningful for me to see people continue to change for the better. And you see that with Garrett. And again, it's just one of those things for me that's inspiring out of the water, for me and hopefully for people watching too. But yeah, really amazing to see the difference in him and how he approaches the waves now versus back then.
You mentioned that this might be your favorite single up chapter of the whole series. What in particular makes it stand out for you?
It really is a standalone episode, even though it ties into the greater story. It's so big. It's such a hard place to get to. The emotions are so high. I mean, we haven't mentioned how this ties in for Toddy and some of the other surfers on the trip. And yeah, I just think it's a beautiful, moving episode and inspiring, and the surfing looks incredible. I just think the cinematography team did a next level job. We've been so lucky to win Emmys for cinematography for the first two seasons, but when I go back and look at those after seeing season three and what we've been shooting since then, the cinematography is on an entirely new level. It's a really complete, self-contained, moving story about an incredible once in a lifetime mission. And it's just beautiful to look at. It is a very big, somehow epic in scope, but it's also just like so in the ground floor of these emotions. And I just think it's a really special episode of TV.
And it's kind of like Nazare has entered I think the popular lexicon, and now Cortes Bank joins it as well.
Well, Cortes Bank, that was where the previous world record was set before. We have video of Garrett way before Nazare, saying Cortes Bank, that's where I'll get the 100-foot wave. It's caused by some islands that have sunk underwater over time. I think, at the lowest tide, I think it's just like 6 feet below the surface of the ocean. Again, 100 miles off the coast of San Diego and LA. And it just creates this really incredibly difficult spot to get to, but where waves can suddenly just shoot up suddenly.
Chapter 4, the Eddy. Again, there's a lot of skipping around because, Nazare was not at its peak necessarily, and people are going where they're going. And the Eddie Aikau Big Wave Invitational happens during your shooting period, and off people go. Interestingly, Garrett is not invited to the Invitational. And so, in some ways, even though he's in the episode for various reasons, others take center stage, and there's this kind of incredible underdog story about someone who's a lifeguard at the beach, but he's also a competitor.
Eddie Aikau, who it was named after, for people who don't know, was,
Yeah.
the most famous lifeguard in Hawaii of all time. Saved more people than anyone. So for a lifeguard, and this is a spoiler, but because you really, it's hard to tell who's going to win when you're watching it. But for a lifeguard who's on duty during the competition, by the way, and takes his break to surf, for him to win for the surf community and such a meaningful victory.
Yeah, and I think it also just shows that this is not a closed community. Someone like that, who's a great surfer, but not on the tour, can compete with the best.
Yeah, but also, his best friend and surf partner is Landon McNamara, Garrett's
Mhm.
nephew. It is also, it is also a small world, and everyone from the show has some part of being around or doing something in Hawaii at the time.
So yeah, you mentioned Landon, and in some ways, season three, there is this element of passing the torch to the next generation. You could even say it's like stuffing the torch in their hand, whether they want it or not, because Garrett has his own way of being a little bit pushy with his relatives. I think largely because he just loves surfing so much and he wants other people who are close to him to experience what he has. But he's also very competitive, and I think he would love to see his relatives do well in these competitions. But we have Landon, we have another.
I think he's trying to share his joy, by the way, in his own way. And
Yeah,
I think Garrett's at his happiest, whether, surfing with his son Titus or surfing with his son Beryl or surfing with CJ, or just surfing with his friends out there too.
absolutely. I'm sure he's an inspiration to, you can see it, to his younger relatives, and he is and will be
But
to
I
his own
agree, he
kids.
doesn't give them much of a choice.
So, in fact, this kind of leads to the final chapter, which is called Family Business, and it really leans into the McNamaras and where they're headed as a family, and also, the other families. We have a baby that is born during the course of the series. Justine Dupont has a child with Fred David, and Chumbo also has a child with his partner. But the most surprising thing is the McNamaras leaving Hawaii and going to the mountains in Italy to a landlocked community, no beach, no water. What the hell is going on there?
It's so beautiful there. I think the McNamara's love and adventure. I think it's easy to fly to big wave spots enough. Yeah, knowing them, it makes a little bit more sense. I think they're always on the move and they do a lot of stuff for their kids, and there's an incredible school there that they love. That's what drives them there. But yeah, you see the effects of, I think Garrett not being close to water or the ocean. I think that you can see in the show there's beneficial effects to that. And, I think there's also just the pull of that stuff on him. Again, it's just like one of those things, I think when you're making a show, scripted or documentary, you want beautiful places, geographic diversity, interesting new worlds. And this show just is this season especially just takes you into them. And yeah, it's still amazing to me that the season ended up in Italy again. When we started, I had no idea that they would move there. But again, it just puts Garrett in a situation where you see another shade of his personality, and it comes back not to surfing, but it comes back to the family and to the future, which might not involve surfing.
Yeah, and we were there at Christmas time with the McNamaras, and Garrett has the opportunity to go to Mavericks, which is blowing up. It's going to be an epic swell at Mavericks, and folks in the series are going to Mavericks, but not Garrett. He decides to stay home with the family at Christmas, and he mostly seems at peace with it. He says, if it wasn't for Christmas, I wouldn't mind being there, but I'm happy right here. And then he repeats the line, which makes me think he's partly trying to convince himself. And it's a great moment. But then there is like one other shot of him, you know, checking the swells on his phone,
Yeah,
I
I love that.
think, which is
Yeah,
a
life's
little.
life's complicated, I think we're all at our best just grateful to be a part of it. And then I think at the same moment, it's so easy to just imagine how it could be just a little bit better if something else happened. And yeah, that's what that moment captures to me. Just the beauty of life that's right in front of you, and also just the endless want to go have something that you don't. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful ending of the show. And again, fortunate to produce it and, have a big role in helping make it. But, the credit to Chris Smith, the director, and, the editors and the cinematographers for just getting those moments and putting them together and finding them. And if I could design a show, it would end with families figuring out how, a family coming together in a new way, trying to figure out how they're going to deal with what's to come. And, it just happens so naturally. And also I mentioned CJ Macias, Nicole's brother, Garrett's brother-in-law, who I think sums it up, really well at the end of the show. I don't know exactly what his line is, but CJ is just saying the one thing we know is things are going to be different. Seeing that land on Garrett and, as a maker of it and as a viewer of it, it really captures a lot about their lifestyle to me.
I feel like CJ is kind of the sage of this season, and he partly was the last season.
I think CJ is just a sage. Yeah,
He
he comes to
he
doing some, see, hopefully, in a growing way in the show.
Definitely. I mean, he says a lot of great things at the end. And here's the surfing metaphor that I really liked, which is we get to choose which wave we ride,
Yeah,
which says
it's
it all.
very beautiful.
Yeah. Last question. I'm not going to ask, is there going to be another season? I don't know if you know, whatever. But my question is, it seems to me like season three shows the way, if this is the path, for a 100-foot wave to continue without Garrett McNamara at the center of it. Not that he wouldn't be in there, but like, what do you think of that?
It's hard. Garrett is never not interesting. Garrett is never
Yeah,
not doing something. It's very hard for me to imagine Garrett's life, well, and the McNamara's life will always revolve around big wave surfing in the ocean, even if he's doing less of it, which who knows if he will be. I think if you ask Garrett now, he'd say, he's still, if the 100-foot wave comes, he'll be out there and it's clean and it's great and surfable. He'd be out there next season. That said, we've shot for 2 seasons since season three wrapped shooting. It takes us a long time to put together the thousands of hours of footage. So a lot of stuff has happened that we've shot. I don't
mm,
know if there will be a season four. We're figuring it out right now, but we're cutting away. And,
great.
you know, a lot more stuff happens with the McNamara's. There's a lot of new characters just showing up, new surfers showing up there now, and the world just continues to evolve. It's possible. I don't even know the answer to this yet. They're waiting to be certified, but there might have been 100-foot waves surfed on two separate occasions, in the past 2 years too. So anyway, big wave surfing continues to be exciting. Garrett continues to have more energy than almost anybody I know or have ever met. So yeah, it's hard for me imagine making this show without Garrett. I don't think I ever would. I don't think we would. But I'll always take more Nicole too. The
Oh, for
more
sure.
the more she'll let us shoot her, I'm happy to follow that thread too.
And here's a shout out to Beryl. He can take the baton.
Earl McNamara, nothing would make me happier than he could star in seasons 10 through 15. Great, great, great surfer. Thea and Faye, I would love to see them get the 100-foot wave. Faye seems to be a little daredevil. She's the one she was born during season two of the show. And the story continues. I never would have thought we'd be making a 17-hour,
Mm.
and running and counting story about this world, but it just continues to evolve and be interesting and exciting and surprise us too.
Well, here's hoping there's a season four. I would say you said earlier about the series, it's about humans trying to do something extraordinary. And I would just add that so is great filmmaking. It's humans trying to do something extraordinary, and you and Chris and the whole team have done so again. So congratulations to you all.
I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone who watches it. And everyone, I appreciate even more everyone who tells their friends to watch it too. And even more than that, I appreciate all the Emmy voters out there who watch it, take time to think about it. So yeah, and Ken, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks so
Hopefully,
much.
I'll be back for season four.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thanks a lot, Joe. Take care, and thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye-bye. Do you have a hidden gem, a documentary that you've seen in the past or even more recently that you think doesn't quite get the attention it deserves?
The attention it deserves. It's so hard to say what gets the attention it deserves. I feel like people interested in films and the making of know this one. I wanted to mention Burden of Dreams, which is about the making of Fitzcarraldo, the Werner Herzog movie about someone trying to build an opera house in the middle of the jungle and trying to haul a boat over a large mountain to do it. And I just think it's one of the best documentaries of all time. Werner Herzog is one of the best subjects of a documentary of all time. It's a subject I'm interested in, which is, making art and making films and shooting things. But, the movie itself is about an artist trying to do something insane, the movie being Fitzcarraldo, and the documentary is about the same thing, Werner Herzog trying to do something insane, which is make this movie in the way that he did it. So anyway, an all-timer. I saw it on Criterion semi recently for not for the first time. So I'll give a shout out to Criterion. I don't know if it's still playing there, but highly, highly recommend watching it from Les Blank, the director, who also did Werner Herzog Eats His Shoe.
Yep, a great double feature.